He was the deadliest assassin on Earth, until a group of sorcerers forcibly dragged him into another world. To compel him to fight their war against the Demon King, they branded a forbidden seal onto his body using the secret art of corpse transmission. Their promise: destroy the Demon King, and they'd send him home. With no other choice, he tightened his grip on his weapons and became their hunting dog, obedient and disposable. 10 years of blood-soaked warfare. He finally brought down the Demon King with his own hands. But those hypocrites immediately broke their word, refusing to send him back, and instead ordering him to eliminate the Holy Knight, Bader. He was a dog on a leash. He had no right to refuse, so he fought with everything he had, and when Bader finally fell, the dying knight smiled at him with strange, knowing eyes. Don't celebrate. You'll be discarded soon enough. The words barely faded before invisible magic threads coiled around his throat. The Imperial Grand General had been standing right behind him. In the next second, a blade punched clean through his chest. That was when he finally understood. He had always been a tool meant to be thrown away. In his final desperate moment, he swallowed a small blue gemstone. He died with humiliation and fury still burning in his chest. When he opened his eyes again, he was inside the body of a newborn infant, cradled in the arms of a beautiful golden-haired woman. He looked up. The man standing behind her carried a strangely familiar presence. The recognition hit him. This man was the most powerful necromancer and dark mage on the continent, the Black Duke of Saxony, which meant this place was the legendary summit of the Black Magic Tower. The reincarnation gem he'd swallowed before dying had worked. He had been reborn with every memory intact. This life, he would be no one's hunting dog. He became Duke Saxony's firstborn son, one of the most prominent nobles in the entire empire. He made a silent vow. When he grew up and mastered necromantic magic, he would make the empire bleed for every wrong they had done. Then his mother spoke, puzzled. This child, why isn't he crying? His father frowned. Isn't a child who doesn't cry a bad omen? The wet nurse stepped forward and took him. She checked his breathing, steady, and her expression firmed with resolve. I have my methods. She raised her hand and delivered a sharp smack to his backside. The pain was immediate and intense. His face went red, but he still didn't cry. The nurse, convinced she simply hadn't applied enough force, raised her hand again, and landed several more solid strikes in rapid succession. He still didn't cry. His mother reached out and took him herself, then raised her own hand. He squeezed his eyes shut in resignation, but the hand didn't fall. Instead it settled against him, gently, warmly, cradling rather than striking. He was a former battlefield killer who had never once been held with such tenderness. The feeling broke something open inside him. He burst into tears. Genuinely, completely, and from that moment on he had a new name, Dale. 8 years went by in a flash. One night, his mother chatted with his father before bed, mentioning that Dale had become obsessed with magic, spending almost every day buried in the study. She looked worried and reminded his father of a certain promise. You swore you wouldn't teach Dale necromancy. His father nodded. Before the words finished, a maid came rushing in, flustered. Something's wrong. The young master. Both parents ran to his room and found Dale trapped in the center of his own magic circle, mana erupting wildly in all directions. His father immediately dissolved the circle, and stared at the power still crackling through the room, expression turning gravely serious. Did you just release the mana from inside your body? Even Dale himself hadn't expected it. This young body had responded to mana this quickly. He hesitated, trying to figure out how to answer without giving too much away. Then his father's tone shifted entirely. Truly worthy of being my son. He smiled with pride and began mentally planning what birthday gift to give. A week later, his father threw an extravagant birthday banquet. Nobles gathered from across the land, all eager to meet the young heir. Dale stood alone on the second floor, watching quietly. After years of being used like a dog, being treated as a noble son felt genuinely strange. But what occupied his mind more was something that had happened the previous night in the study. When he flipped to the record of his past life subjugation of the Demon King, the magic inside his body had erupted without warning. That powerful resonance made one thing clear: this body was born to learn necromancy. Then his mother approached, with a mysterious stranger at her side. She told him this person was his birthday gift, an elder from the Blue Magic Tower, the continent's greatest water mage, Lady Sophia. She will be your teacher from now on. But before anyone could react, Sophia immediately asked to speak with Dale privately. Once they were away from the crowd, she revealed why. Those perceptive blue eyes of hers had already seen straight through him. What you truly want to learn has never been gentle water magic. It's your father's dark necromancy. She held his gaze. But I'm sorry, your mother's instructions were firm. Water magic only. When your father made his wedding vow, even the elders who only ever wore black robes dressed in pure white for the ceremony. A sight that had never been seen before. A testament to how serious your father's commitment was. Wanting to learn dark magic will be very difficult. I understand that. Dale immediately countered. Don't you find necromancy and dark magic frightening? You're an elf who upholds the laws of nature. Sophia gave him an answer he hadn't expected. A priest who casts resurrection magic is called sacred. A necromancer who does the exact same thing is called a heretic. In my view, there is no difference between them. Those words told him everything. This woman was nothing like the stubborn traditionalists of her kind. She might actually be an excellent teacher. He agreed to apprentice on the spot. When she learned he had already condensed mana fragments, she began teaching him how to expand those fragments into a complete circulation circuit. Following her guidance, he pressed both hands to his chest and concentrated. He could feel it, this world was nothing like Earth. Mana saturated every inch of the air. But unless you were an ancient creature like a dragon, no one could directly control those raw ambient forces. To use raw mana, you needed the circuit at your heart to function as a power station. By gathering and assembling the circuit fragments scattered around the heart, you could form a stable loop, a complete mana system. Sophia guided him step by step. Slowly draw the mana to circulate around the heart. Most people need a month to stabilize this. Don't rush. Before she finished speaking, Dale lifted his head. Teacher, I think I'm done. He opened his palm. Mana had already condensed into a complete magic circle. Sophia's mind short-circuited entirely. An 8-year-old child, in mere minutes, had accomplished what takes ordinary people a full month to learn. This shattered every understanding she had of magical cultivation. Her voice was trembling. Can you actively release the mana along that circuit? He decided to try. Normally, just gathering the mana fragments was already an enormous feat for most people. In his past life, he could only cast combat spells through magical seals branded onto his skin. But this life was different. He had inherited the bloodline of the Black Magic Duke himself. This body could naturally absorb ambient mana from the world around him. He guided the mana to his fingertips and through the circuit began to crystallize it. He shaped it with purpose, refining it into something capable of punching through Imperial armor. Normally, once mana leaves the body, it disperses, its form collapses. But this child could crystallize mana perfectly. While Sophia was still processing that, Dale fired the ice bullet straight at the tree behind her. The bark shattered like paper. Then the projectile detonated, and the 2-meter-thick trunk split cleanly in half. Sophia stood completely dumbstruck. Who was this child? What kind of magic was this? So precise, so brutal. He had even used the golden sequence of military-grade casting. First spin the mana into a violent vortex, then accelerate it to maximum velocity, then compress it to the absolute limit. This was a technique designed for slaughter on the battlefield, and he had deployed it effortlessly. Sophia's spine went cold the more she thought about it. She found the Duke immediately. Your Grace, I genuinely cannot continue as Dale's teacher. The Black Duke was baffled. Dale mastered the circuit in minutes. Shouldn't that mean you intensify his training? He just executed a military-grade spell on the spot. The Duke's expression went flat. Military magic was designed for killing, which meant his 8-year-old son already possessed the full capacity to take a human life. The Duke pushed back. Isn't defensive magic the Blue Tower's specialty? Are you telling me even your people can't handle him? Sophia shook her head. The young master has already decided what he truly wants to learn, and that is necromancy. At the word, the Duke's chest seized. I know about your promise to his mother, but that promise does not give either of you the right to strip a child of his future, especially when he shows magical talent like this. Outside the door, Dale was eavesdropping but couldn't make out the details. He assumed he'd frighten Sophia off with his magic. Note to self, control the output next time. Dale! He turned. It was his favorite uncle, Helmet, whom he hadn't seen in ages. Helmet immediately hoisted him up into the air, grinning. By the look of him, he'd just returned from a dungeon raid. Knights in this land had one sacred mission: conquer dungeons and contain the monsters that escaped. And the Saxony Duchy's dungeon problem was 10 times worse than anywhere else on the continent. The cause of that was Dale himself. In his past life, after he'd killed the Demon King, his father, the Black Duke, was ordered to conquer the former Demon King's territory. No one had warned them this region's dungeons were essentially a monster landfill. In plain terms, they'd handed his father the Empire's trash to clean up. Later, his mother congratulated him on mastering a first-tier mana circuit, and told him to ask for any reward he wanted. Dale tilted his head, thinking, I want a little sister. Both parents turned bright red. We'll try our best. That night, lying in bed, Dale complained to the ceiling about how exhausting it was to perform small child every single day, and immediately fell asleep. He dreamed again of the battlefield, the Grand General's blade driving through his chest. He jolted awake. Mana was erupting from his heart with no control, as if his body might burst open at any moment. He recognized it, mana overload. He walked outside to get air, but the situation worsened. Even breathing became difficult. Then Sophia, sensing the dangerous pulse of energy, quietly appeared behind him. One look at his face told her everything. She stretched out a hand wrapped in calm mana and placed it gently over his heart. The moment she sensed what was raging inside him, her eyes went wide. This child's talent was beyond imagining. If he was allowed to walk the wrong path, the consequences would be unthinkable. She guided the storm inside him back to stillness, then looked at him with quiet resolve. The magic in you is extremely dangerous. That's why I want to be the teacher who leads you toward what is right. She held out a book. He looked down. It was a dark magic tome. Happy birthday. Looking at her gentle face, he couldn't help himself. He threw his arms around her. A few days later, Sophia brought him to the northern spirit grounds and found a small, perfectly white, completely harmless rabbit, his training target for the day. He immediately formed the circuit array and fired an ice bullet, punched cleanly through the rabbit, but Sophia was looking at his face. You didn't feel even a trace of sympathy for that rabbit. He looked blank. She continued, magic is a mirror of the soul. Through mana particles it renders what you hold in your heart, and it does so truthfully. Even the same spell cast by different mages will look completely different. This is the foundation of the Great Towers. The Red Tower values authority and order. The Blue Tower values harmony. Beyond those, the Black Tower, White Tower, Green Tower, Yellow Tower, and more. The core of each tower is expressed through the nature of their magic. Sophia realized this was getting too abstract and ended the topic, returning his focus to the practical training. The most basic necromantic technique was operating a puppet through mana threads. In the next moment, the dead rabbit slowly stood up, opening blank, hollow red eyes. Sophia nodded with approval and directed him to the next task. He formed a new array and cast frost armor onto the rabbit. When it landed, the rabbit's body was encased instantly in a shell of jagged ice. Time to test the armor's durability. Sophia quickly formed her own array and fired a spell directly at the rabbit. Against everyone's expectations, the frost armor held against the full strike. Dale let out a triumphant cheer, then looked at her with bright eyes. Teacher, I want to learn water magic too, alongside necromancy. No, Sophia refused without a moment's hesitation. You're being greedy. Mastering a single school of magic is already extraordinarily difficult for a beginner. Someone who commands two schools simultaneously is called a dual-element mage, and that requires exceptional talent and extraordinary control. At your age, it's simply not possible. But after the lesson ended, Dale still couldn't let it go. He dragged out every relevant text he could find that night and read through all of it without sleeping. The next morning, Sophia was visibly alarmed by the dark circles under his eyes. Before she could say anything, he summoned yesterday's rabbit. A magic array bloomed in his palm, and in a flash of light, the rabbit's ice armor shattered violently. Sophia's heart lurched. But it wasn't over. 2.5 seconds later, the rabbit's body exploded from the inside out. Bone marrow and ice shards burst outward like razor blades, scattering in all directions. A double detonation. Dale's eyes were filled with eagerness. Teacher, I fused necromancy and water magic perfectly. Does that make me a dual-element mage? Sophia had completely lost the ability to respond. She immediately generated an emergency barrier, blocking the flying shards of bone and ice crystal. She stared at the scene in front of her. She had never seen an attack method like this. A double detonation created massive area damage. This type of magic existed only for merciless battlefield slaughter. But looking at his guileless young face, her emotions were a complicated tangle. Then footsteps approached. It was Uncle Helmet. Dale asked and learned he'd just led the Black Cavalry back from a dungeon raid. We all put in real work out there. Dale knew something about the Black Cavalry from his past life. They wore armor and carried lances wreathed in a mysterious aura, the undefeated mounted force of the Saxony Duchy. Their commander, Sir Helmet, was one of the continent's legendary 7 Holy Knights. An opportunity had just appeared. Uncle, I want to learn swordsmanship from you. Helmet said he was welcome anytime, then rode off to lead his men to the next assignment. Back at the castle, Sophia was confronted by Dale's mother. Didn't I instruct you to teach him only water magic? As his teacher, I should teach him what he truly wishes to learn. His mother's brow furrowed. Just continue with water magic. Nothing beyond that. Sophia agreed outwardly, while inwardly wrestling with her own guilt. She had, after all, violated the Black Duke's vow, and Dale, having learned dual-element magic, was entirely her doing. When she left, his mother smiled with forced lightness. Our son is remarkable, isn't he? 8 years old and already a dual-element mage. But his father couldn't sit still. The boy's magical talent genuinely frightened even him. He hesitated before finally asking, "Can I teach Dale necromancy? He is the future lord of this land and needs the ability to command everything in it. And I, the continent's greatest necromancer, want to pass everything I know to my son." He bowed his head quietly. His wife was silent for a long moment. You know exactly what people say about necromancy. They call it dirty murder magic. They say it behind our backs. That is precisely why I refused to let you teach him in the first place. But now, she reached up and touched his face. I want you to raise him into a mage more powerful than you. Powerful enough to crush every whisper and rumor under his heel. The Duke's breath caught. He pulled her into his arms without a word. To have a wife who understands me so completely. I truly am blessed beyond measure. And just like that, Dale's necromancy training officially began. He brought in a small white rabbit and demonstrated what he'd taught himself so far. His father took one look and immediately frowned, his face full of disappointment. What exactly do you think you've been learning? He brought Dale down to the magical workshop beneath the castle, waved a hand, and an enormous stack of books materialized out of nowhere before him. Memorized the complete skeletal and muscular structure of every living creature. Is that understood? Dale nodded under his father's grave gaze, then immediately buried himself in medical textbooks that had no business being in a child's hands. After his father confirmed he had absorbed the material, they moved to practical application. This time his father brought out the corpse of a goblin. When a necromancer lacks sufficient power, even if you provide him with a powerful body, he can only make it shuffle around like a clumsy zombie. But a truly skilled necromancer can make the corpse of an ordinary soldier fight like a death knight. Now, make the goblin move. Dale applied the same technique he'd used on the rabbit. But the goblin's anatomy was hundreds of times more complex, and the difficulty spiked immediately. The mana threads kept going wrong. No matter how much force he applied, the stiff goblin remained completely motionless. Just as Dale was at a loss, his father rested a hand on his shoulder. Forcing the body to stiffen only limits its range of motion. Watch carefully. His father raised his palm. Vast dark magic swept through the space, then broke apart into countless threads thinner than a strand of hair, sliding into the goblin's body at incredible speed. Within seconds, the rigid form went completely soft. Then, far more terrifying, sharp bone claws grew from the body itself. This was not reanimation, it was a rebirth into something deadlier than the creature had ever been in life. His combat capability many times that of what it had been before. His father looked at Dale. The ribcage exists to protect organs. But the dead have no organs that need protecting. These useless bones can be reshaped into lethal weapons. But the prerequisite is a complete understanding of the body's structure. Only then can you reshape it into whatever you wish. This is the foundation of dark magic. The sight struck Dale like a thunderclap. He couldn't stop himself. What is the spirit that dark magic pursues? His father smiled faintly. Dark magic pursues truth, and truth is found within death. To pursue truth, you must first understand the weight of life. The words crashed into him, surfacing memories of his past life. The years shackled by those so-called righteous sorcerers. He had executed their kill orders without question, never understanding what was right or wrong. He hadn't felt like a person in those days. He had felt like a blade held in someone else's hand. Dale, what's wrong? His father's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. He answered steadily that he was fine. Under the continent's greatest dark mage, his abilities grew at an extraordinary pace. But news that Duke Saxony had secretly taught necromancy spread across the empire, openly violating the sacred vow he'd made on his wedding day, which made him a target of widespread condemnation. Meanwhile, Dale had begun sword training with Uncle Helmet. He was no longer just defending, he was finding windows for counterattacks. Just now he had absorbed a powerful downward slash, and as he was about to strike back, Helmet suddenly stepped backward and raised the training sword overhead for a wind-up strike. Dale immediately halted his advance, cleanly dodging the heavy blow. Then, in the instant Helmet pulled the sword back to reset. Dale surged forward and struck, sending the wooden sword flying from Helmet's grip. Helmet froze. That was a beautiful move, but to Dale's eyes it felt wrong. A real warrior would never let a weapon leave their hand willingly. So, Uncle, you were going easy on me just now, weren't you? Helmet picked up the sword and gave an honest answer. No, that strike of yours. In a real fight, it could end an ordinary person's life. He looked at the calluses and cuts on Dale's hands, expression pained. You're a mage. You don't need to push this hard. There are always knights around to protect people like you. While bandaging his hands, Helmet asked why he was training so relentlessly. Dale answered without hesitation. I am the son of the continent's greatest Black Duke. If I needed a bodyguard escort every time I left the house, people would laugh themselves into the ground. And besides, training alongside one of the 7 great sword saints? How could I let an opportunity like this pass me by? Those few sentences had Helmet beaming ear to ear. Then a familiar voice broke through. He turned his mother with good news. About the birthday wish he'd made. He'd actually forgotten entirely what he'd asked for. Wait. Hadn't he casually mentioned wanting a little sister? His mother saw the dawning realization on his face and confirmed it. From now on, you'll need to look after her well. 10 months passed. The family gained a new member. A small, round, chubby little sister. His father handed her to him. Dale took her very carefully. Strange. She cried for everyone, even their father. But in his arms, she went completely quiet. His father leaned in, How does it feel? Dale looked down at the tiny creature in his hands. She's so light to hold, but in my chest, she feels impossibly heavy. His father smiled. That is the weight of life, Dale. Never forget those words. He nodded, only half understanding. When lesson time came, Sophia's opening announcement startled him. No theory today. A real fight. Use your full strength against me. He attacked first, formed a sharp ice crystal projectile and launched it at full speed. She deflected it with a single wave of her hand, then rounded on him. Dale, you just held back against your teacher. The next second, she hurled the deflected ice shards directly back at him. Fast as a rocket. He had 1 second to form frost armor and shield himself. Sophia saw his reaction speed and allowed a hint of satisfaction onto her face. Good. But now give me what you've really got. He locked in. Both hands slammed down against the ground. The crunch of ice forming echoed outward, and a massive wall of ice erupted from the earth. It rose up between them. She realized he'd changed the composition of the ice. He was buying time. In the next moment the wall exploded outward, sending thousands of ice shards scattering through the air like shrapnel, tearing through her body completely. Smoke billowed everywhere. He had used a compression technique, condensing each ice fragment to maximum density. The destructive power exceeded that of a hand grenade. When the smoke cleared, Dale went rigid. Sophia's body in front of him was riddled with holes, torn completely apart. He screamed her name in terror. Ha! Are you calling me? Sophia walked out briskly from behind him. He only then understood the destroyed figure had been her conjured double. Relief flooded through him. He immediately apologized. Sophia knelt to his eye level, expression gentle. Giving everything you had means you trusted me completely. I'm proud of you. Later, his father summoned Sophia in a hurry, and found her covered in fresh wounds. He couldn't fathom who could possibly injure a mage of her caliber. Sophia just smiled it off. These are nothing. Don't concern yourself. The Duke calmed down and got to the point. A band of orc warriors recently crossed the mountains, trying to invade Imperial territory. I want to bring Dale along to help eliminate them. Sophia immediately shook her head. Absolutely not. Dale is only 8. He doesn't belong on the front lines. His father cut her off, voice carrying an authority that left no room for argument. As the firstborn heir of the Saxony family, protecting this land is his responsibility, and his calling. Sophia fell silent at that, cold sweat on her brow, and could only nod. Then his father changed tone entirely. I intend to grant Dale one of the family's sacred treasures. I hope you can help guide him in mastering it. What his father called a treasure was one of the legendary relics. These divine artifacts ran on life as bone and magic as core. To harness their power, one had to pay an unimaginable price. The stronger the relic, the more terrifying the cost. At best, broken meridians, permanent crippling. At worst, death and complete soul annihilation. Yet the Saxony family had long since mastered this forbidden power. His father turned to look at him. Dale, as the family's sole heir, the time has come to prepare yourself for the battles ahead. Battle. He was surprised and excited. His father nodded and said he'd be taking Dale with him to fight the orcs. But first, there was something else. The room they were led to was stacked floor to ceiling with weapons and armor. A massive armory. Every piece was a priceless artifact, spoils taken from demons in wars fought by their ancestors. His father's warning was absolute. Every item here holds immense power. Before you learn to control them, do not touch anything. He turned around and Dale had already vanished. He was already searching for something worthy of him. As he passed by one shield, he heard it speaking to him. Take me. And then all around him weapons called out. Choose me. Choose me. I'll give you invincible power. None of it stirred anything in him. Not enough. Not yet. What he wanted was something truly his, something that would build a legend. Then a pitch-black cloak drifted silently toward him, like a shadow taking shape. He stared and felt his pulse spike. This was the Shadow Cloak, a legendary artifact. In his past life he had seen it with his own eyes, worn by Commander Boda of the Demon King's army. It was a supreme relic. It could make illusions physical, give shadow a real and deadly form. Without hesitation he threw it around his shoulders. His father and Sophia arrived just in time to find him wearing it. And before either could speak, a black shape poured out from the cloak. I'm so hungry. So very hungry. Dale understood immediately. The Shadow Cloak was no ordinary weapon. It could summon dark storms, but only if you treated it as a living thing. To truly master it, you had to make it completely surrender to you. At that instant, several shadows materialized from nothing and lunged at him with gaping maws. Outside, his father and Sophia were growing increasingly anxious. He's been in there a long time now. Can the young master hold on? Sophia's voice was unsteady. His father's brow was locked tight. The longer he stays in the Shadow Realm, the greater the risk of being consumed. We cannot wait any longer. He was just about to force a rescue spell when the black sphere around Dale cracked. From inside, the shadows scattered into smoke and dissolved. Dale walked out without a scratch, but disbelief was written across his father's face. The man knew this relic better than anyone alive, knew how dangerous it was, and it had just submitted unconditionally to an 8-year-old child. This completely destroyed everything he believed he understood. Dale walked up with barely concealed excitement. "Can I try the others too?" Both adults froze simultaneously. Even seasoned warriors faced near-death odds just subduing a single relic. Yet seeing that Dale was genuinely unharmed, his father finally nodded. So under careful supervision, Dale worked his way through every treasure in the vault. The day they went to the training ground, Helmet immediately spotted the cloak. His jaw dropped. The shadow cloak is extraordinarily dangerous. You can actually control it? Just a little sting. Nothing else. Helmet's expression shifted. Exactly the same way his father's had. Dale hurried to explain. "It came to me on its own. Maybe it just wanted to be friends." As he said it, a small black shadow poked its head up from the ground. He stomped it back down without breaking stride, then turned to Helmet with a challenge. "Can you and I have a proper duel? With real weapons?" Helmet accepted, and in an instant his full aura rolled out. The crushing pressure made Dale immediately regret the challenge. This man was one of the continent's 7 holy knights. Helmet saw the flicker of hesitation and laughed. "Don't worry. I'll only use basic swordsmanship. No magic." That actually made Dale annoyed. He was clearly being condescended to. He immediately channeled the Shadow Cloak's power. His true goal: use the pressure of a holy knight to train his control over the relic. Victory or defeat hinged entirely on what kind of weapon he could forge from shadow. He charged with a shadow blade. Helmet casually cleaved it apart with a single stroke, then immediately lifted his sword and surged forward. Dale backstep dodged perfectly, then let the shadow spread across the ground beneath Helmet's feet, erupting into a forest of sudden spikes. Helmet was startled but recovered quickly, charging again. Dale met the attack head-on with dark force and held it. One blow from Helmet would have cleaved an ordinary sword in two. The shadow cloak had absorbed it completely. That alone proved the relic's power. The exchange continued. Helmet's most elite subordinates couldn't last 2 of his moves. Yet Dale, an 8-year-old child, had exchanged 10 rounds with him. On the night before they marched, his mother could not let it go. Sending her child this young into a life-or-death battle, this was unheard of, extraordinary recklessness. She made him promise repeatedly, "Come home alive." Then Dale set out to the rally point. Helmet had already assembled the Black Cavalry and was prepared to march. He was about to request orders from the Duke, when his father suddenly turned. His gaze landed on Dale. "You give the order to march this time." Dale stood completely still. "This Black Cavalry is the pride of our ducal house. It will pass into your hands one day, and from today forward, they are your knights." The warmth that swept through him was overwhelming. In his past life he had been nothing but a lone wolf. In this life he had the finest cavalry on the continent. He faced the assembled force and shouted, "Warriors, march!" The Black Cavalry raised their lances in unison. They set off, 250 Black Cavalry troops in total. But according to intelligence, the Orc tribe they needed to intercept numbered over 1,000. The Orcs had already crossed the mountains and were camped at the upper reaches of the Saxony River. Before long they would push downstream. They had to move faster, cross the river first. When he spotted a familiar figure at the river's edge, he felt a rush of surprise. An elf's kind appeared there, and they never joined wars. Getting one to participate was considered impossible. Yet here Sophia was. She walked to the waterfall, knelt, and released a flow of ice magic. In moments, a perfectly clear and impossibly sturdy ice bridge spanned the river. And so they crossed hundreds of meters of open water. Without losing a moment, they crept silently to the edge of the Orcs' temporary encampment. Everyone pressed flat in the grass, waiting. When darkness fell, the knights lit their torches. Fire arrows rained down like a downpour. The encampment was engulfed instantly. The sudden assault threw the Orcs into chaos. Casualties were immediate and heavy. Helmet leaped to his feet and roared at the cavalry. "Charge!" The riders formed up and swept down the hillside in a thundering wave. From his vantage point Dale watched their speed reach 40 paces per second. Their heavy armor only made them more devastating, like boulders gathering momentum. All that mass would concentrate at the tip of a lance, with magic poured into it, capable of punching through anything alive and any armor on the continent. "This is a completely one-sided massacre," Dale breathed. "Exactly. This is what the Saxony Black Cavalry can do." His father's voice carried unmistakable pride. Helmet immediately cautioned, "Do not drop your guard." No sooner were the words spoken than the Orcs read the incoming charge. and rapidly locked shields into a tight defensive wall. Just as the cavalry prepared to slam home, Helmut did something no one expected. All forces retreat. A flare shot into the sky. The riders didn't hesitate. They pulled their horses around and broke off. Helmut had a new plan. The ambush had been successful, but it wasn't enough to achieve total annihilation. A full repositioning was needed to finish them. The sudden retreat left the orcs confused, certain their shield wall had driven the cavalry back. They immediately launched their own counterattack, hurling spears. One spear drove clean through a black cavalry horse. Horses had no heavy armor plating. There was a casualty. His father grimaced. The orcs saw the rider fall and immediately surged to finish him off. Dale was on his feet. Are we really just going to watch that happen? His father and Helmut said nothing. The distance was too great. No cavalry rescue was possible. To save that knight, someone would need to punch through orc hide armor from extreme range with a single shot. Orc skin was far thicker than any other monster. His current ice crystal magic couldn't do it. The only way was to layer additional force onto the ice crystal. Model the structure of a bullet. Recreate the mechanism of a sniper rifle. Dale had spent his entire past life surrounded by firearms. Every component of a Barrett .50 caliber was etched into his memory. He summoned the mana and assembled it in an instant. A crack of sound exploded from his fingertip, and the orc skull detonated at range. Both his father and Helmut stared, unable to process what they'd just seen. One clean hit. Dale immediately pushed his horse forward. Helmut moved to stop him on pure instinct, and his father held him back. At his age, to invent his own magical formula on the battlefield, he's already past the point of being a child. Let him go. On the battlefield, the orcs turned toward the fallen knight, closing the distance. The Barrett configuration was too complex to deploy twice quickly. He immediately drew on his past life experience and simplified the mechanism. When the orc was 1 meter from the knight, the second ice bullet tore through the air and drilled through its skull. The knight looked up at Dale in confusion. Why come to save him at such risk? Dale met his eyes steadily. The Saxony family never abandons any loyal knight. As they spoke, 2 more orcs charged. This time Dale wasn't using the Barrett. Time to test the Shadow Cloak's full power. Shadow Blade. The darkness shaped itself into countless razor edges, and drove through the orc's body. Then it devoured the corpse entirely. Nothing remained but white bone. The horror of that sight rooted the last remaining orc in place. Dale tilted his head. You're not running? Before he could finish, the shadow engulfed the last orc too. Dale knelt beside the knight, and found his legs were shattered. With no other option, he picked him up in a princess carry and brought him back to camp. Hold on. I'll take you back. Seeing the enemy formation collapse, Helmut gave the charge order. The black cavalry swept the entire orc encampment flat. That night his father called him into the command tent, expression severe enough to freeze the air. He praised Dale's courage in rescuing his comrade. Then he pivoted sharply. But you charged the enemy line alone, which was profoundly reckless. Give me your reason. Dale didn't understand why his father was criticizing him, but answered honestly. You said the Black Knights would one day be mine to lead. I was just fulfilling my responsibility to protect them. His father let a private smile flicker through, then sealed his face again. That reasoning is insufficient. Dale was completely bewildered. His father cherished his knights above almost anything. How could he not recognize this? He couldn't stop himself from shouting. Was I supposed to watch that knight die in front of me? His father rose to his feet. The land I govern is crawling with demons. My knights go to war knowing no rescue will come. A true knight must survive by his own judgment and will. What you did gives them reason to assume someone will always come for them. That kind of thinking is the most lethal trap on a battlefield. Every fight is a crucible. We only intervene at the absolute limit. Dale lowered his head in shame. He couldn't argue. It was the truth. Then his father placed a hand on his shoulder. But Dale, having your own convictions is valuable. Never lose that spirit. By the next morning, the story of Dale and the cavalry knight had spread across the entire empire, with some versions claiming he'd personally slaughtered 1,000 orcs single-handedly. The legend grew more outrageous with every retelling. Dale was uncomfortable, but this tale had earned him the genuine respect of the empire's people. The warmth and cheering nearly overwhelmed him. Then a maid's call broke through. Young master, the guest from House Auhart has arrived. Dale went cold at the name. House Auhart's Bader. Dale had killed him with his own hands in the past life. Bader was one of the continent's 7 holy knights, and because of his death, the Teutonic Knights had been absorbed by the Empire. House Auhart had collapsed into ruin. What was even more startling was that Bader had been the very man who set Uncle Helmut on the path of knighthood. Dale's emotions became impossibly tangled. When he reached the main hall, the visitor was a young woman in black, accompanied by a golden-haired girl of about 9. Bader's widow and his daughter. More striking still, the two had arrived completely alone, not a single attendant. They had clearly fallen to the lowest depths. The woman in black bowed with formal dignity. I am Vanessa of House Auhart. I come to pay my respects to Duke Saxony. This is my daughter, Charlotte. Mother, why are you bowing to these people? Charlotte raised her voice without any attempt to hide her hostility. Vanessa went red with distress and sharply rebuked her. His father calmly suggested they look around the castle. Dale extended an inviting hand, and Charlotte wrenched it away furiously. Do not touch me. The outburst stunned everyone in the hall. Even the sleeping baby sister snapped awake. Charlotte stormed out. Vanessa explained helplessly. The family's misfortunes had made her child volatile. Her voice was shaking. A man tried to violate my daughter, Lord Brandon, the newly appointed Count of Brandenburg, the self-styled Holy Knight of the Empire. He has his eye on the bloodline within Charlotte's body and wants her to carry his child. Even though she is not yet of age, Charlotte had escaped by luck, but the trauma ran deep. Vanessa's tears fell now. As a fallen noble, I have no power to protect her. I am begging you, take her as a servant of Saxony. Let her be far from that monster. The misery of their story moved both the Duke and his wife. Meanwhile, Dale had already guessed where Charlotte had gone. As a knight's daughter, the training ground was the obvious answer. Sure enough, he found her there immediately. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying recently. He intended to forgive her earlier outburst, but her gaze went hard, and she drew a sword. Fight me. I've heard what they say about you, that you killed 1,000 orcs single-handedly, that no one can touch you. I want to beat you. I want to prove I'm stronger than you, strong enough to protect myself from Brandon. The name lit a fire in Dale's chest. In his past life, that man had driven a blade into his back. He would never forget that coward. He hadn't expected to find him again, or to share an enemy with Charlotte. He decided to see what the girl could do. Come at me. All of it. Every one of Charlotte's cuts was loaded with rage and murderous intent. Her movements were fluid, her speed shocking. She had even activated the aura energy unique to knights, the power that surpassed ordinary human limits, built up through years of cultivation. Like a mage's mana circuit, it was the crystallization of everything she'd poured into herself. This body was born for knighthood, carrying instincts that most could never develop. And yet, even so, Dale's advantage was absolute. He heard her story between exchanges. After her father died, her mother spent every night telling Charlotte the tales of his legend, telling her she was the heir of the Holy Sword. But the reality was that she couldn't even beat him. Her weapon flew from her grip. She dropped to her knees and sobbed. Why? Because you're not the Holy Sword itself. With your current strength, you're not close to Brandon's level. She's dozens of times better with a blade than you. Hearing that, Charlotte's face crumpled in anguish. Even with my whole world destroyed, I never stopped training. Never for a single day. She hadn't finished when she suddenly lunged. A surprise attack aimed straight at his heart. He blocked it with ease. He looked at her slumped form and felt the weight of it settle on him. Everything she suffered was because of him. If he hadn't killed Bader in his past life, she would have grown up carefree beside her swordmaster father. He made a silent promise. I will be the guardian of House Ahart, until she is strong enough to face that monster alone. I will protect you. Charlotte's head snapped up. Confusion flooded her face. Why? Because your potential is extraordinary. But the condition is that you swear absolute loyalty to the House of Saxony. Without a moment's hesitation, she dropped to one knee. I, Charlotte Ahart, on the honor of a knight, swear to become young Master Dale's blade. To become the blade of House Saxony. Behind the simplicity of those words was the burning conviction of two people with everything to lose. Later, when Vanessa asked Charlotte to become a servant, he expected her to refuse. A former noblewoman's daughter, after all. But she agreed without a moment's pause. His father looked at him, puzzled. What exactly happened between you and this girl? Dale met his father's eyes. She carries the last bloodline of the Holy Sword. Her talent is exceptional. We have made a new oath together. She will be a knight of House Saxony. His father nodded, satisfied. In his heart, Dale was quietly pleased. The last heir of the Holy Sword bound to him. For Brandon, that was a direct blow to the face. Meanwhile, in Brandenburg's fortress, Brandon was already seething over Charlotte's escape. The assassins we sent were killed halfway there. We think Charlotte did it herself. Useless. Brandon finished cursing and turned to the weapon mounted on the wall behind him. He reached out and stroked a long sword radiating a faint, cold light. His gaze equal parts obsession and something deeply wrong. The expression of someone looking at a lover. How beautiful these times are. Don't you agree? My sacred Durandal. He extended his tongue toward the blade. My precious betrothed, wait just a little longer. Whatever price I must pay, I will find you the perfect heir. He turned to his subordinates. Contact the Thieves' Guild. Send men into Saxony territory. Whatever they ask for, pay it. Bring Charlotte back to me. A week after Charlotte swore her oath, she had adapted to the Duke's household and accepted strict training as her daily reality. Sparring with Dale had become a fixture of her routine. Helmet personally oversaw their sword sessions. He watched the two of them going at it and quietly thought, is this really children playing? Their technique might not yet match the Black Cavalry, but their killing instinct and raw speed were breathtaking. Dale suddenly yanked the shadow cloak around himself, concealing his blade beneath it, angling for a hidden strike when she wasn't looking. Charlotte reacted with uncanny speed. Following the flaw in his movement, she drove her blade straight toward the cloak. In the instant before point met fabric, Helmet's hands came down and stopped both their swords simultaneously. He praised Charlotte's sharp instincts first, then shifted tone entirely. Miss Charlotte, do you know the essence of the short sword? Force and precision, thrust and push. Isn't that it? The opposite, actually. Helmet shook his head. The true essence lies in footwork. When he dodged just now, he was quietly closing the distance. In that moment, your correct response was to immediately pull back and wait for the next opening. And your sword arm swings too wide. The more your blade moves, the harder it is to land a precise hit. You need to rebuild your fundamentals from the ground up. Charlotte's brow furrowed, thoroughly puzzled. Helmet continued, I've been watching for several days. Your posture and footwork are both immature, and mixed with some wild self-taught habits. She puffed up with indignation, cheeks going red. That's because I've never had a real teacher. Helmet suddenly laughed. Now you do. Starting today, I'll correct that strange stance of yours. Charlotte's fury kept building. Dale quickly pulled her aside. Helmet was already bent double laughing. I'm teasing you. The face you just made was absolutely adorable. He reached over and ruffled Charlotte's hair gently. Helmet was one of the continent's 7 great sword masters. With his personal guidance, Charlotte's growth would be nothing short of rocket-powered. If Dale didn't push twice as hard, she'd close the gap on him before long. And in magical training, he couldn't afford to ease up either. Sophia had made clear that constructing a mana ring was an extraordinarily long process. First learning to feel mana moving through the body, then guiding it into stable pathways, then carving the magical diagram into the body itself. For a typical mage, the process took at least 10 years. Under Dale's brutal self-training, he had completed it in a single month. When Sophia learned this, her eyes went wide as coins. You've already completed the second mana ring? He nodded. In this world, a mage's mana rings were measured in rotations per minute. A first-tier mage typically ran at 300 rotations. His first ring was already spinning at 2,000. His second was running at 400. The minimum threshold for the second ring was 300, which meant he was technically ready to attempt the third. Having reached the second tier, he decided to run an experiment, improving his existing ice projectile. He first strengthened the cohesion between ice molecules, making it denser and harder. Then he modeled a large-bore cannon barrel structure to improve rotational speed and force. The result? An ice armor-piercing round. He fired it at a tree. The trunk exploded outward. A massive cavity punched clean through the wood. It had drilled straight through the entire diameter. Sophia stared, jaw hanging open. What just happened? Dale was genuinely impressed with himself. Apparently making armor-piercing rounds was this straightforward. The second mana ring had unlocked that level of output. Sophia applauded his progress warmly. She thought to herself, from rescuing the cavalry knight in battle to protecting Charlotte, this boy always turned his advantages toward something worthwhile. At times he was frightening, but far more often he was someone you could trust. You truly are my pride, she said it, and immediately pulled him into a tight hug. The sudden contact made Dale, a former battlefield hardman, go completely rigid. She was entirely too comfortable with physical closeness. His face burned red. That afternoon, sitting in the courtyard, his mind wandered. Did she actually see him as just a child? He shelved the thought. Practice comes first. He raised his hand and built a towering ice wall, then pulled out his improved projectiles. A new variant designed after a 12-gauge shotgun shell. The round fired, bouncing back and forth inside the ice wall, ricocheting off the interior surfaces. Next time I could probably convert this into a corridor pattern. You've been training here the whole time. Charlotte's voice rang out behind him. She said she'd been drilling the footwork Helmet had taught her, and tilted her face down, going red. About before. I'm sorry. You were out of line, he said, deliberately stern, then softened, just a little. But I forgive you. They fell into easy conversation. In the window above, his parents happened to see them. They smiled at each other. Time really does fly, doesn't it? Our son is already at that age. His father laughed. Standing together like that, don't they make quite the pair? His mother said she'd keep a close eye on them, guide them, let them follow their own hearts. And this gentle woman of theirs spent every week going to the commoner district, distributing food, helping arrange work. The people were deeply grateful. From this year on, Dale and Charlotte joined her every time. One day, a small child suddenly grabbed Charlotte's hand and screamed, "Help me," then bolted, pulling her down an alley before finishing the sentence. Something was deeply wrong. They had left the escort knights far behind, and were now threading through a tangled maze of narrow back streets. More telling, a frightened child asking for help doesn't ignore adults to grab a small girl. Dale glanced up at the rooftop. a figure in black. Thieves Guild. Sent by Brandon. His stomach dropped. The target was Charlotte, though this approach was almost laughably obvious. Wait. I'll go get my mother. He stalled, trying to find an exit. But rounding the next corner, several thugs blocked the way. This doesn't involve you, kid. They fixed their eyes on him like a threat. Tell the lady to come with us. Quietly, Charlotte immediately pushed Dale behind her. You go. Now. Dale stepped forward past her. You want to take her? Get past me first. The lead thug's mouth curved in contempt. Oh, very noble. Very knightly. How touching. But have a look at yourself, kid. More thugs closed in from every side. Charlotte was visibly tense. Dale. I left my sword behind. Don't worry, he told her, because this was a perfect opportunity. Under the guise of self-defense, he would test a new technique with the shadow cloak. When they rushed him all at once, Dale activated the cloak. A wave of pure darkness swallowed them whole. Inside the blackness they couldn't see each other, and began striking blindly at their own allies. Screams rang out. This shadow blindness was a new ability Dale had unlocked after breaking through to the second tier. By planting shadow generators like parasites in targets, it turned them against each other. Then a voice. My deathless one is ready. The leader came out of nowhere, charging directly at him. Saxony or not, he dies today. In these alleys, there's nothing to stop the soul-bound assassination technique. But the blade barely reached him before a black force batted it aside. Dale summoned a double-barreled construct and took aim, one shot dropping the man's hidden accomplice behind him. The undying shade launched itself at the accomplice and devoured his soul. The remaining thugs went white. Even Dale hadn't expected the gun to one-shot cleanly. The shadow howled with satisfaction and systematically eliminated the rest. When it was done, Dale walked toward the corner where Charlotte had pressed herself. Then he noticed the last thug, staring at the dismembered bodies, tried to run. An ice bullet caught his ankle. He went down hard. Dale walked over, considered extracting intelligence, then lost interest. He gave the man a quick end. He looked at Charlotte. This is the true face of House Saxony, the face people fear. But it is also the power that can protect you. He asked her, seeing all of this up close, are you afraid? She nodded, then thought about it. But you were fighting to protect me, weren't you? One day, I'll pay you back with my own strength. I'm going to work harder. In truth, taking Charlotte in had slowly eased something else too. The guilt he'd carried over the death of Sir Bader. He reached out his hand. She took it without hesitation. Charlotte's feelings for him seemed to run somewhat deeper than he'd anticipated. Meanwhile, Brandon was raging at a box on his desk, because after Dale reported the attack to his father, the Black Duke had packed the heads of Brandon's men into that box and sent it over, with a letter attached. Lord Brandon, I cordially invite you to visit the Saxony Duchy, in earnest hope that you will not refuse. Brandon understood perfectly. This was the Black Duke's final warning, demanding he answer for what he'd done. Going was walking into the lion's den, but facing the pressure of the Empire's greatest noble house. Even the world's greatest sword knight had no choice. Several days later, Brandon came. The Duke received him with a pleasant smile. I hadn't expected you to come so quickly. Forgive our modest hospitality. Brandon heard the mockery underneath and said anyway, I'm uncertain what brings such urgency to your summons, Your Grace. There was recently some trouble at the Duke's estate. A kidnapping incident that disturbed the whole empire. Then his father's tone went cold. Bold enough to act in broad daylight. Quite the nerve. Brandon denied everything with practiced innocence. I suspect you've summoned me over this matter. But I am the Emperor's faithful servant. How could I ever do such a shameful thing? His father's fury erupted. Dark magic exploded outward, filling the room with black smoke and driving wind. In seconds, every escort and retainer Brandon had brought was blown away entirely, leaving only Brandon himself white-faced and shaking. His father's gaze was a blade. Kneel, Holy Sword Knight Brandon. Do you intend to keep pretending? Brandon seethed inwardly, but the pressure had him physically trembling. He dropped to his knees with a thud. That proud head bowed. His father delivered his final warning. Touch anyone in the Saxony family again, and I will exterminate your entire bloodline. Then he softened, tone shifting with brutal precision. You've had a long journey, you must be exhausted. Please, rest with us tonight. My deepest thanks, but urgent business calls me home. I must depart. Every additional second in this house was a second too long. Brandon fled, carrying humiliation and barely contained fury with him. Dale watched him go and fell into thought. He was the Emperor's most loyal instrument, and would eventually become the spark that ignited the Empire. A single flame in the right place could set an entire forest burning. When that moment came, the organization could be dismantled completely, and the news of a Holy Sword Knight kneeling before the Black Duke would shake the Empire's core. Shortly after, his father summoned Sophia, and pulled back a white cloth covering the corpses of the Thieves' Guild assassins. Each had been torn apart with extraordinary brutality. Dale was responsible for all of this. He spoke with the tone of a man asking a favor. Dale's gifts are extraordinary. He needs your wisdom to guide him onto the right path. I would ask you to serve as House Saxony's household advisor. Sophia held a long silence before giving a solemn nod. Her most important task, for now, was understanding what was truly happening inside this child. Time moved. Dale's 10th birthday arrived. The celebration this year dwarfed the last. Even an envoy from the imperial court attended. The nobles praised everything around them in lavish terms. But Dale knew exactly what these people were. They weren't here to celebrate. They were here to deliver a warning. The imperial house would not tolerate any insult to the Holy Sword Knight Brandon. The man chosen to carry this message was the one standing before him now. Lord Road, master of the Red Tower. They were obsessed with flame, fury, and power, and infamous for their worship of the Empire's divine justice. Ruthless in achieving their goals. In Dale's past life, he had suffered through the Red Tower mage's experimental modifications firsthand. The Saxony family truly does produce exceptional talent. Road spoke with deliberate flattery. I hear your magical abilities are unrivaled. Worthy indeed of being the Black Duke's son. Dale responded with flat politeness. I hope you enjoy the evening. He wanted nothing more than to get through this hollow banquet. His teacher had once said he preferred training with Charlotte. While he was thinking it through, a scream tore through the air. He ran toward it and found a heavy-set, thick-necked man pressing a servant girl against the ground, knife in hand. He was one of the Emperor's noble allies, Pietro. Pietro's expression was repulsive, knife pressed to the servant's throat. Everyone's busy celebrating the young master's birthday. No one's going to notice. What are you doing? Dale shouted and charged. Pietro barely glanced at him, even sneering with something like amusement. You're so little lord. Never been with a woman before, have you? Let me give you an education today. He tightened his grip on the girl. Dale was shaking with rage. A magic array formed at his fingertips. I will make you disappear from this world right now. Pietro only sneered harder. In a world of rank, no one will fault me. They'll blame the maid for seducing me. That was all Dale needed to hear. An ice crystal round fired, punching clean through Pietro's ear. He screamed. Dale stared at him with absolute contempt. Kneel before me. The power of his presence locked Pietro in place. Kneel. Apologize to this young woman. Pietro's nerve broke, but his mouth kept going. I represent the Emperor. You're taking a servant's side against me. That is an insult to His Majesty. Dale shot back immediately. Does His Majesty enjoy watching nobles abuse their servants for sport? The commotion had drawn his father and the other guests. His father's voice rang out sharply. Son, what is the meaning of this? Dale explained clearly that this man had attempted to assault a Saxony household servant. He addressed the assembled nobles. Every one of you bears the responsibility of representing His Majesty. Yet Lord Pietro sought to defile our servant's reputation, and in doing so, he defiled the Emperor's reputation. I could not allow that to go unanswered. Rode, watching from nearby, gave a slow, deliberate round of applause. Entirely correct. Then Rode raised his hand, condensing fire, and fixed his eyes on Pietro with something predatory. A creature like you dares to claim you represent the imperial house? Pietro turned to flee in terror. Rode smiled serenely, and sent a column of flame rolling over him. Pietro vanished inside it entirely. When the fire faded, Rode looked at Dale. There's nothing for you to say. Eliminating those who disgrace the Empire and the Imperial House, that is my purpose. Young Lord Dale, may your future be as bright as the fire itself. With the Emperor's faction departed, the Saxony household finally breathed again. The next morning, the maid woke him, fidgeting and stumbling over her words, as she tried to thank him for what he'd done. Her quiet, tentative gratitude settled into him like something warm and unfamiliar. That feeling, of another person's genuine thanks, was something he had never experienced in his past life as a hunting dog. But the peace didn't last long. His father summoned him to the study, expression grave. Dale, what you did with Pietro was an enormous risk. Dale didn't answer at first. He felt the moment was right. It was time to say what had been sitting inside him. Father, you know what happens if the otherworld hero who killed the Demon King had survived that encounter? His next target would have been our Saxony duchy. His father's eyes widened sharply. How could you say something so treasonous? What evidence do you have? The Empire discarded that hero. They feared losing control of a warrior who had served his purpose. Even after defeating the Demon King, the Empire left his territory's darkness uncleansed, and then handed that monster-infested land to you. They were forcing our family to make a one-sided sacrifice. As long as any monsters remain uncleared from that land, our forces are permanently pinned down there. This is indisputable proof that the Imperial House harbors deep suspicion of House Saxony. He lowered his head slightly. In his past life he had overheard the Imperial Court's secret plans to destroy House Saxony. He couldn't reveal that directly, so he framed it this way. His father stayed silent. Dale pressed on. Even now, people within the Empire and along its northern borders call us the Dark Clan. just as they discarded the Otherworld hero. One day they will move to eliminate us as an internal threat. His father pressed, "How do you know they discarded the hero?" Dale scrambled for a justification. "These are conclusions I drew from historical records. The Imperial House publicly claims the hero. If my reading is correct, this empire is a predator. It takes from the weak by force and calls it justice." His father stared at him, shock, and beneath it, an unmistakable flash of admiration. "Then what do you believe we should do?" Dale answered without hesitation. "House Saxony and this empire cannot coexist. We must destroy it." His father's expression darkened immediately. "You want to raise an army right now?" "Not now. 10 years from now. Right now, independence movements are rising across the provinces. Other lords like you fear the empire will turn on them next. The empire's economy is decaying, brigandry is rampant. The situation will eventually spiral completely out of control. In these 10 years, we build our strength. Support resistance forces across the land. Unite the wavering nobles. Secure the loyalty of the urban merchant class. And slowly seize control of the empire's economic arteries. He laid out the full strategy. They talked until the sun went down. Then Dale asked how his father felt about it all. His father laughed, long and loud. "Dale, you've seen a future I couldn't see." His eyes blazed with something fierce and joyful. "From today forward, you are no longer only my firstborn son. You are no longer only a 10-year-old child. You are the heir of House Saxony. And from this moment the family will listen to you and respect your counsel." Dale breathed in slowly, feeling the full weight of those words. His position had just become equal to his father's. He looked his father in the eye. "If you mean what you say, then allow me to enter the tower of the undead city for the High Tower trial." His father's expression sank. He exhaled. "The High Tower trial is a mage's brush with death. Challengers fight the tower's floor guardians to prove their magical ranking. Only by defeating higher-level guardians can you advance. And those who reach the peak earn the title of Magic Tower Master." He refused firmly. "That place is too dangerous. Could kill you. You haven't even completed your 3rd mana ring. It's far too soon. Normal people don't attempt the 3rd ring until their mid-20s. Only graduates of proper magic academies are typically eligible." Dale met his father's gaze steadily. "This trial matters to both me and to the family. If I can prove myself here, I won't just be solidifying my standing as heir. I'll be earning genuine respect, not the hollow kind born from rumors." His father fell into long silence and finally relented. A few days later, his father brought him to the Death City of Norl. The Black Magic Tower's elders assembled in full, the atmosphere heavy and tomb-cold. Even Dale found himself briefly questioning whether he'd pushed too hard. He's the Empire's unique magical prodigy. Is that really true? A golden-haired young man let out a cold laugh. The Academy's top graduate, Ulrich. That little thing looks like one punch would break him, and he wants to win the trial. Then a short-haired woman stepped forward, the Tower Elder and Chief Administrative Secretary, Eris. After brief formalities, she led Dale inside. 59 Academy graduates were already waiting. "All of them will be participating in the trial alongside you." The doors opened. Eris took the stage and announced the rules. "The first floor is a life token elimination round. Check the life necklace around your neck. Each necklace holds 1 life value. By directing undead puppets to land effective blows on opponents, you can shatter their necklace and eliminate them while gaining 1 life value for yourself. Reach a total of 3 to advance. No items allowed. A quick and efficient way to eliminate beginners." Nearby, a tall challenger pointed at Dale with contempt. "This freak is only a 3rd-tier mage? Pathetic. Let's team up and take him out first." They looked at each other with shared calculation. "Do we really have the right to attack a child?" Dale remained perfectly calm. "No one needs to look down on anyone here. We're all competitors." His quiet confidence detonated their fury. When Eris called start, every challenger summoned their undead at once, and every single undead fixed its gaze on one target, Dale. A wave of undead soldiers came charging. He didn't panic, because his undead soldiers weren't just larger. Each had grown hard bone claws from their palms. This was what the continent's greatest dark mage had taught him, using the skeleton to forge lethal weapons. His undead let out a roar and exhaled piercing ice breath, their bodies encased in glacial armor. When enemy undead tried a flanking attack from behind, the armored warrior absorbed the blow and protected Dale completely. Someone had spotted it. "That's water element magic. Don't tell me this kid is a dual element mage." The tall challenger erupted in protest. "Using water magic to empower your undead is an obvious violation." Dale looked at Eris directly. "The rules prohibit nothing but dark magic enhancements. They say nothing about other schools of power. If the trial hasn't been stopped, I'm not in violation." Seeing Eris acknowledge this and allow the match to continue, the other challengers grew genuinely desperate. "Block his undead. Everyone attack at once. Bury him in numbers." Dale surveyed the field. No items and no good position. In a situation like this, there was only one method. He charged directly at one undead soldier and hammered the weapon from its hands. That was his plan. Take the weapons from enemy undead. Amid the stunned stares of every challenger, he rapidly infused the blade with mana, reinforcing its durability. His blade-empowered undead obliterated opponents with crushing force. The challenger's undead fell one by one to his combination of swordsmanship and necromancy. He worked through them all, whittling life values down until only the last challenger stood before him, and that challenger broke. "Please, young Master Dale, I surrender." Dale couldn't understand why the man was so frightened. This wasn't real death. He swung, and deliberately hit him over the head with the flat of the blade. Dale suppressed a smirk. He'd used the blunt side. Dale, life total plus 59. Advancing alone. Eris's announcement sent the entire hall into absolute silence. But that was only the beginning. The second floor was different. All magic permitted, no items. The objective, defeat a flesh golem, stood over 10 meters tall, a writhing mass of bones and bloodied flesh, looking on the verge of bursting at any seam. Under normal conditions, the survivors of the first floor would have teamed up against the monster. But Dale had eliminated them all. He was alone against it. The golem roared and swung a fist that shook the entire ground. The fist connected with the floor, and the golem smiled with something like triumph, assuming its prey was already dead. But he hadn't noticed. Dale had already bonded his magic to the fist on impact. He triggered accelerated decay immediately. The golem's arm began to rot from the point of contact, the stench spreading outward. Both his father and Eris went wide-eyed. The young master's magic is truly extraordinary. But Eris was frowning. Why isn't the golem simply amputating the decaying arm? She didn't know what she was watching. This was his past life's ultimate monster-killing technique. Biological chemical warfare. In under 2.5 seconds, the flesh golem liquefied entirely into a pool of putrid water. They had no way of knowing that what they just witnessed, the bizarre rotting, was biological attack disguised as dark magic. Dale covered his nose and stepped back. The smell was unbearable. He kept climbing, floor after floor, and he broke through the 10th, setting a new tower trial record. He was given 4 days of rest. During those same 4 days, to address the trauma of the first floor's mass elimination and to preserve competitive fairness, Eris reviewed the remaining 59 participants. That evening Dale sat empty-minded before the courtyard fountain. Sophia appeared beside him. "Young master, you performed brilliantly." He gathered himself and looked at her. "Teacher, would you go on a date with me?" Sophia's face flushed red in an instant. He quickly added, "There's a city festival tonight. I just want to see the celebration." She nodded, but as she turned away, the corner of her mouth curved up in private amusement. A date? This child had probably misunderstood the word. By the time they reached the city festival, the streets were alive with noise and light. They walked together under the moon, the atmosphere perfectly easy. Sophia said softly, "The moon is beautiful tonight, isn't it?" In the language of his past life's memories, that phrase carried a hidden meaning. "I love you." He went quiet, not knowing what to say next. But the silence between them held no awkwardness at all, only something gentle and unnamed. Maybe it was because she had trusted him from the very beginning that he found himself wanting to be closer. A few days prior, while practicing on the balcony, he had unexpectedly broken through to the third mana ring. To push past his own limits, he released the mana until it raged freely, then entered deep meditation. He arrived at the inner realm of enlightenment, a place of absolute void. Nothing here but infinite emptiness. And in that hollow world, Sophia had stretched out her hand toward him. She was like a light, filling all the empty space inside him. Now she noticed him drifting and gently shook his arm. "What's wrong?" The words came out before he could stop them. "Teacher, I like you." Sophia froze. A long pause. "What did you just say?" He said it again, louder. "I said I like you." Her eyes lit up instantly, warm and soft. "Dale, I like you very much too." She pulled him into a tight embrace. He stood there, completely still. Several days passed. The 11th floor trial arrived, and Dale was still quietly miserable. His confession hadn't changed anything. Sophia had taken it as the sweet and innocent declaration of a 10-year-old child. He could only comfort himself. Love can wait. The trial cannot. The 11th floor was a one-on-one magical duel. All items permitted. Full power allowed. The life necklace no longer guaranteed safety. His opponent, a third-ring mage named Albert Rosenheim. Albert stood with his arms crossed, expression radiating contempt. "Young Lord Dale, don't expect me to go easy on you because of your age. I want you to know your winning streak ends today. Since there are no restrictions now, I have no reason to hide anything. Let me show him what real difference looks like." The match began. Before the referee's call had even faded, Albert was already attacking. Black flame hurled forward. "Stay sharp, kid." Then a cascade of dark swords materialized, raining down like a storm. Dale could see it clearly. That speed of attack meant she'd been chanting her spell before the duel even officially started. A blatant violation. What turned his stomach was this. The judges knew it too, and did nothing. They simply wanted to see how much he had in him. Fairness was an afterthought. This was the system, the one that put advantage above principle. Disgraceful. Dale gritted it away and kept moving, using his footwork to slip each attack cleanly. When the sneak attacks failed, Albert began summoning her undead. Rise, my deathless ones. Swear eternal service to me. Born of darkness. Deeper than the night itself. Dale cringed. What fever dream had produced that chant? Albert snapped impatiently. Are you just going to keep dodging? The undead closed in, trying to corner him. He unleashed a black wind that scattered them instantly, but Albert laughed. We're not done yet. The undead all detonated simultaneously. Albert was certain he had won. Then the smoke cleared, and she found the arena entirely empty. Dale was gone. He had activated the Shadow Cloak's invisibility. Albert panicked, spinning in every direction. Where are you? Come out, come out! He materialized directly behind her. You look nervous. Before she could react, his shadow had already coiled around her feet. The shadow asked eagerly, Can I eat her? Can I? Can I? Can I? He told it not to eat too much. It obliged, opened wide, swallowed Albert, and obediently left the body intact, consuming only the inner organs. The resulting scene was deeply unpleasant. Every challenger still watching went pale. After the referee declared him the winner, he looked out at the assembled crowd. Anyone else? Fear spread visibly through every face. No one stepped forward. Some surrendered outright. One even said he just wanted to live a normal life. The remaining rounds went smoothly. Opponents either surrendered or were dispatched without difficulty. Until the 20th floor. There he finally found a true opponent. The Headless Knight. Created personally by the Norrell Tower's Elder Rhoda. This guardian's power vastly exceeded anything Dale had faced. Even Eris couldn't help herself. Young master, this may be the highest you are able to go. Dale smiled internally. If everything went exactly as predicted, where would be the joy in that? He raised his hand and released shadow magic. Black mist flooded the arena. The audience could see nothing. When the mist lifted, something stranger still had occurred. The Headless Knight was kneeling before Dale, head lowered in complete submission. He had said only one word, kill yourself, and the knight had complied without hesitation. The depth of that loyalty shook Dale to the core, a created being betraying its maker for a stranger. Yet despite it, Dale then did something no one expected. He turned without a word and walked directly toward the exit. Because he knew, the floors beyond this were an unknown realm that even monsters feared. He would not press further. He had already proven himself. As he walked out of the tower, the entire assembled tower stood in orderly ranks. Nobles, elders, and all trial challengers alike. A grand salute to this father and son. No one knew it yet, but from this moment, the powers of the northern territories had begun quietly uniting. House Saxony was becoming the banner they would rally behind. The name of the Saxony Duchy was echoing across the north. After Dale completed the tower trial, a weighty commission fell on his shoulders. His father had decided Dale would personally lead the campaign to eliminate the remaining orc tribe. For a 10-year-old child, the responsibility was staggering. Yet across the entire duchy, not a single voice questioned his fitness to command. Because the boy who had stood alone against 60 in that tower had already spoken louder than any words could. For young Lord Dale, for House Saxony, the Black Cavalry drove into the orc line. They weren't people he needed to protect. They were a sword swung precisely by his hand. Another unambiguous victory. As the rightful heir of House Saxony, Dale had begun consolidating the north. He gave his father the after-action report with quiet efficiency. Father, we eliminated 1,500 orcs. Our cavalry casualties? 3 lightly wounded. Nothing else. His father asked if he'd used magic to shield them. Dale shook his head. This victory belongs entirely to the Black Cavalry's own excellence. His father's eyes were full of pride. Helmet went further, declaring Dale fully capable of commanding a force 10 times this size. Dale graciously credited everything to Sir Helmet's training. His uncle laughed so hard he could barely stand. Training resumed as normal afterward. Charlotte's swordsmanship had begun to advance in visible leaps. Her technique was clean and flowing, her speed extraordinary. Several times she nearly caught Dale off guard. At 10 years old with that level of skill, she was already exceptional by any measure. One day, as Helmet and Dale were discussing tactics, how to properly deploy cavalry on one or both flanks to break through and encircle, Helmet moved the flags representing the Black Cavalry, then used the infantry banner to block an enemy cavalry charge. This is the Hammer and Anvil strategy. The name comes from placing iron on the anvil and striking it with the hammer. This tactic depends heavily on the quality of your cavalry. It only works because we have the Black Cavalry. Then their conversation shifted to Charlotte. She had established her own foundation in sword technique. They planned to teach her the Saxony method of channeling spiritual energy through the blade. If she mastered it, her power could multiply dozens of times over. Helmut exhaled. But there's something that troubles me. Dale had seen it coming. Charlotte's sword style was fundamentally incompatible with their school's approach. Just as different magic towers had different philosophies, knights channeled their spiritual energy differently, each style producing a unique aura of power. Helmut's tradition produced cavalry like charging war machines, embodying the North's principle of raw power dominating the battlefield. But Charlotte sought a different kind of sword. Swift, light, a blade defined by speed rather than strength. That fundamental divergence could become her ceiling, Helmut said with regret. With her talent, she could perhaps reach the minimum threshold of the 7 sword saints, but she will never hold the first position, the peak her father once occupied. Helmut often spoke of it with quiet sorrow. Bader's blossoming sword, the greatest blade technique on the continent, now gone forever with its master. While managing these challenges, Dale maintained his own studies without faltering. His reputation continued to rise steadily, until one sharp crisis broke the rhythm entirely. A vassal lord of House Saxony, Baron Grunberg, came in desperate distress. Duke Puckle has launched a border war, claiming that your copper mines belong to him. If I refuse to hand over the mines, he will formally declare a contest of arms. After a brief pause, he added worse news. Brandon has sided with Duke Puckle. And then the final blow. They have also sent word that unless we provide a share of the copper mines output, the Order of St. Magdalena will intervene. The Order of St. Magdalena, the most powerful knightly order in existence, forged from the Empire's greatest war heroes. Dale understood the whole picture immediately. This was Brandon's revenge. He still hadn't forgotten being forced to kneel before the Black Duke. That public humiliation. He couldn't declare open war himself, so he'd incited Puckle to harass the border, and attempted to buy the Order of St. Magdalena's military support with mining profits. Brandon, if you want to play, I will play with you to the bitter end. He turned to his father. I request permission to lead the Saxony Knights on campaign. His father refused immediately. You are too young for this. You cannot carry this responsibility. Killing monsters and killing men are not the same thing. This is not a game. He turned to the pleading Baron Grunberg and made his own promise instead. The mine issue would be handled. Dale lowered his head. He was capable of managing this. But his father wouldn't trust him. Helmut noticed his disappointment and pulled him aside. Little lord, don't take it to heart. I've prepared something for you. How would you like to learn a strategy game with me? A war simulation, similar to chess. Complex rules but closely modeled after real combat. Master it and it will serve you enormously. Come. A few rounds together while we discuss the battlefield situation. Dale's eyes lit up. He didn't say another word. He grabbed the board and sprinted to his father's study. He left behind a thoroughly bewildered Helmut. Dale dropped the board on the table with a heavy thud. Father, if I defeat you in this game, allow me to command this territorial campaign. His voice and gaze were absolute. War is not just strength against strength. It is a battle of minds and will. Evaluate me through this board. Helmut saw the Duke's expression shifting and rushed to intervene. I'm sorry, Your Grace. I'll talk him out of this. Just as he reached for Dale's arm, his father spoke. If you win, I grant your wish. But if you lose, you permanently abandon any idea of leading troops into battle yourself. Dale nodded. The match began. Drawing on his understanding of terrain and precision troop deployment, he took the early advantage. Helmut's jaw dropped, because the 10-year-old Dale had just won 2 out of 3 matches against the Black Duke. Dale looked straight at his father. A bet is a bet. Allow me to take the field. A long silence. Then his father asked, when did you learn this game? Found the rule manual in the library a few years ago. Studied it on my own. He fabricated the answer easily. He could hardly say it came from an entire past lifetime of warfare. Finally his father relented. A promise is a promise. In my name, I grant you full command authority over every knight in this campaign. Helmut immediately objected, urging reconsideration. His father looked at Dale. This touches the honor of House Saxony. There is no room for failure. I ask one final time, are you truly willing to take sole responsibility for this? Dale answered without flinching. Trust me, I will come home victorious. Not long after, in Brandon's stronghold at Marboth, Brandon's fury was nearly lifting the roof off his study. He had cornered his son Philip. You went to the commoner district drinking again? Philip barely started his denial before his father cut him off harder. Do you know what time this is? Rumor has it Saxony's Dale is personally leading knights on campaign. And here you are wasting yourself. What do you think you're doing? Philip dismissed it with an airy wave. Dale? He's 10 years old. What threat could he possibly be? As your firstborn, father, I request permission to lead our forces, and personally beat that arrogant little ghost into the ground. Little ghost. Brandon slammed his fist into the table. He was shaking with fury. You call him a little ghost? He stared at his son's look of absolute contempt. Fury only building. You don't have what it takes. Not even if you had 100 more years. Philip went pale and cold. Then Brandon's tone pivoted completely. In this battle I will give you command authority. You will lead our knights. Philip lit up, convinced his father had finally recognized him. The next second, the words landed like a bucket of ice water. What exactly are you celebrating? Your only role is to stand at the front and look symbolic. Actual command belongs to Sir Milvise. He takes full responsibility for all tactical decisions. Brandon gestured and had Milvise take Philip away, with instructions to teach him how to function as a proper figurehead. Brandon sat alone, fury curdling into dread. Sending a 10-year-old to war, was this also the Black Duke's calculated move? A few days later, Dale arrived at Baron Grunberg's territory. The Baron's face was a strained mask of polite welcome. We are honored to receive young Master Dale of House Saxony. Behind him, his guards were far less diplomatic. Muttering amongst themselves, he's basically a child. Can't even swing a sword properly, but they're saying he's a magic prodigy outside. Maybe we shouldn't worry too much. The Baron had clearly overheard it, and rushed to smooth it over. With you here, young master, we already feel so much better. We can finally breathe. Come, there's a banquet prepared inside. Please, rest first. We don't have time to waste on banquets. The Baron stood frozen, clearly unprepared for a 10-year-old to dismiss him this openly. Before he could react, Dale had already drawn his sword, blade leveled directly at the Baron's chest.